Hello, it's Tom here, and joining me today is Dave.
Hey Tom.
So, you got the chance to go see Tekken 7 at an early Namco preview event, and well, what we can say about it is it's running on Unreal Engine 4, the first time the series has ever done it. So I guess my main question right off the bat is, does this still feel like Tekken? Does it look and animate like a Tekken game?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely looks and feels like Tekken, and I think one of the things to consider with Unreal Engine 4 compared to the older versions of the Unreal Engine is there's less of a specific look. You can kind of take the technology and tailor the aesthetic. I guess there's a lot more flexibility in that sense.
Right, yeah. I mean, you can see it all over the place, can't you? With, Street Fighter V was, I believe, the first proper AAA game, if you like, to use the engine. And now Namco's following suit with their mainline fighter. So, shall we get some of the specifics about what we're seeing here out of the way? It's PS4, right?
Yep, this is a base PlayStation 4 it's running on, and according to Namco, this is the master build. So presumably this is the most up-to-date build they have before the game actually sort of goes gold for launch.
Yeah, so I asked about this, and they came back to me saying it's the latest build, master build. Of course, this is kind of the progress on Tekken 7 is rolling. It's it's been out in arcades for 2 years now, and I imagine there's been a lot of progress visually since then. Lots of character updates and tweaks to the gameplay. Now, finally, home console owners get the kind of final tweaked version. So yeah, it's not just limited to arcade mode now. What else did you see there?
I had the option to play the main story, arcade mode, treasure battle, and then do things like character customization. But one of the big things I saw was the PlayStation VR mode, which I was quite excited to get my hands on. I didn't know whether it was going to be a kind of first-person mode, whether you're kind of are the character, or whether it's going to be, just seeing the Tekken gameplay in 3D, being able to look around. And, it is that basically. It's traditional Tekken gameplay with a kind of more dynamic camera that you control with your head.
I guess if you think about it, if you were tasked to make a VR version, a VR mode in a fighting game, how would you go about it? Would you make it a first person? Because I think that would go against the style of the Tekken controls, because when you go first person, I think Street Fighter games in the past have tried this, maybe the 3DS one. It kind of makes depth perception a bit tricky, but it's still doable. But in this case, they seem to have gone for like a side-on referee perspective, almost like you're adjudicating the whole thing.
Yeah, it's basically the kind of the normal camera, but obviously wherever you look, your field of view follows basically, and you can zoom in and out. If you lean towards the camera, you go closer. If you move to the side, you can get like a side-on view of the characters. So it's kind of weird. It is literally like you're standing there watching these two people fight, even though you're actually controlling one of them.
Does it work well? Do you enjoy playing it like this? I noticed there's no HUDs at all though.
Yeah, I did ask about this because the VR mode that I played was basically, there was two features. You had a training mode where the second character just stood still and did nothing, or you could turn that to versus CPU, where obviously you would fight against this character. But you're right, there's no HUD, there's no timer, there's no rounds. Basically, the fight goes on forever. At the moment, at least, you're just constantly pummeling away against an opponent with no end goal, no different backgrounds, just this is what you see here.
You see, this is why I reckon it's an early build. It feels like this is like a proof of concept, and they've got to build on a pretty solid foundation, barring the kind of jerky head movements. It looks pretty much good to go. They just need to bring in the regular game mechanics. Yeah, I guess you get an overlay HUD when you want to look at the general settings. So maybe that's the direction they'll go with, when they add the health bars and all that.
Yeah, I did ask about this, whether this was the extent of VR mode or whether there's more to come. They didn't know for sure, but they were saying there's a possibility that if this mode is popular, they could obviously expand upon it via DLC. But it's also worth stressing they weren't sure whether there was going to be more to this in the actual finished retail build compared to the version I played.
So did you have the headset on yourself?
Yeah, I did. I captured most of this with the headset on, and it's kind of me sort of doing those dramatic head movements to emphasise that, yes, this is VR.
And you can kind of move forward and back in a limited way?
You can do, yeah. I was seated, so I couldn't do much. But yeah, you move forward and back, left to right, and it kind of behaves as you'd expect.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it goes with the territory within a VR game, but the image does look a bit softer, probably because it's been funneled through the VR box output.
Yeah, this is the social screen, so you get a hit taken to image quality compared to the headset.
Yeah, I mean, how did it look up close? I mean, from here it looks about as murky as a lot of VR games tend to when it comes through the social screen.
Yeah, I thought it looked sharper when you're actually using the headset.
That's good.
The social screen footage did have more of a sort of scaled look to it, but it looked a lot sharper when I was viewing it via the headset itself. Which, yeah, I guess that's good to know. It doesn't look as rough as what you're seeing here.
Well, that's good to hear. So VR is kind of a unique selling point. I don't know if everyone will be going for it because the the attach rate of VR headsets, PSVR headsets, isn't massive, but it's significant enough that they can factor in, especially considering games like Resident Evil 7 sold pretty well on the grounds of a good VR support. But I guess for the more competitive scene, we're looking at the side-on traditional view on a regular screen, and with the base PS4, well, some interesting things came up, didn't they, with resolution?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the game at the event, it looked quite soft. There was quite a lot of sort of post-processing, and this was exaggerated by the TVs that we're reviewing on, which were not calibrated. So
oh yeah, they never are at trade events.
The game didn't look very good there.
No, they're always over-sharpened, aren't they?
Yeah. Looking at the footage here, it looks a lot cleaner, a lot more balanced. But one thing that did still stick out to me was that it looks rather soft, and I guess there's two reasons for it. The first is Namco using a lot of post-processing.
Is it more than they'd usually use on it? I know Tekken 6 had a lot of post-effects laid over the top.
Yeah, this one takes things a step further. Like, compared to Tekken Tag 2, which was very, very clean, even Tekken 6 to an extent, this has, quite heavy use of film grain, and they vary it. So it gets... there's lots of grain used in story mode, and then in arcade mode they pare it back a little bit. But it seems to be the thing with this one is to have a filmic look.
Okay, so film grain's a bit of an odd choice for a fighting game, and I'm not sure, in my view, I don't really need it. I kind of hope there's a toggle in there to turn it off if I want it. And I'm sure a lot of fighting game fans would probably have that same mentality, but yeah, looking back over the series, I think the gameplay looks spot on. It reminds me a lot of Tekken 3 and 5, and the legacy of all these characters and the way they animate is still there. But I have to say, coming from Tekken 5, which was probably one of my favourites, I really like the pure 1080p output on that game. Because on PS3 it was like just a port of the PS2 version, wasn't it? And so we got okay, let's do this at 1080p, and it looked great. So when they moved to Tekken 6 and now 7, they seem to be pushing for more effects work, more post effects, at the consequence of, a sharp native resolution.
Yeah, that's right. This is where we did a bit of pixel counting on this, and the results that you found were quite interesting, because the game does look soft despite the post-processing as well. So
yeah, that's the second part. So post-processing and the fact it looks to be running at 900p. We got a number perhaps a little bit lower than that, but certainly 900p seems to be the target here. And yeah, I mean, fair enough. It looks like it's running really smoothly as a result of that sort of compromise. I mean, it's soft, but by no means bad on the eye, and from your tests you've noticed it's going at 60 FPS pretty much flawlessly?
Yep, I didn't notice any drops in performance at all. It's perfectly smooth from what I've seen. I'm not doing any massive sort of big combos here or anything like that, but I'm guessing that in terms of these fighting games, having per frame latency, you want to avoid lag as much as possible. So I imagine Namco have finely tuned the engine so that when a lot of the bigger moves come out, I'd really expect it to hit 60 FPS constantly, and as there is a drop in resolution from native 1080p, I don't expect there to be any issues with regards to sort of performance.
Well, on the other hand, the game looks stunning in parts. This stage here with the reflections on the floor, the lighting in the background, the kind of impact effects, it looks better than it's ever done, really. And well, that plays into the sort of filmic style of the story mode, which is kind of a new addition. It looks very cinematic, more so than any other Tekken game before it, and you know, the one thing that struck me was the way the kind of intro sequences seeg seamlessly into the gameplay, the battle.
Yeah, they've definitely improved a lot on that front, especially in the actual main story mode. You can get CG sequences and they actually link directly into real-time footage.
Yeah.
The CG stuff does run at 30 frames, but yeah, Namco seem to have done a much better job with story mode in terms of having more dynamic cameras and just making it more exciting rather than cutscene fight, cutscene. They've tried to mix things up a little bit. And the other thing that I've noticed is they have tweaked some of the general animation as well. I know that a lot of the main combos, they have the same keyframes so that you can still perform the traditional combos and you know the per frame inputs, but I noticed that the actual animations themselves in between those points are very smooth, a bit more fluid than say sort of Tekken 5, perhaps even Tekken 6. So there is some improvements with you know, the core.
So the animation blending.
Yeah, so there has been some improvement there.
Cool. So if we were to say dual wield, you know, the Tekken 5 say against this one, maybe we could get a good match between like old and new. That could be quite fun, actually.
Yeah, there is actually a Tekken 5 stage in this particular game.
Yeah, so I noticed that's the one with the kind of like the stone dragon in the background.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I remember that one. That's
great to see.
Maybe when we get the final code, we can go ahead and give that a shot, see exactly how far we've come over a whole generation's worth of update.
Oh yeah, that would definitely be interesting. I'd love to take a closer look into how the series has evolved.
So as an overall view, how did you leave this game? Did you leave with a glowing impression overall?
Well, I was really excited after playing it. You know, I haven't had a good sort of main Tekken game since probably, you know, Tekken 5. I really enjoyed Tekken Tag 2, but it's great to see a main entry with lots of good gameplay modes. There's a sort of a reasonable arcade mode, really expanded story, and visually it may not be running at native 1080p or sort of delivering an absolute pin-sharp presentation, but I think it's come a long way to the you know, the 576p Tekken 6 compromise
I remember
we
that,
had
yeah.
on PS3. So I think, you know, it's a really nice looking game. It feels good to play and it runs smoothly at 60 FPS. So yeah, I was excited to play it and I came away wanting more. So
right, let's call it there. Of course, this is an early build. We've always got to say that because it's only fair to the developer. They may improve it by launch, but it's looking really good. Prospects are great for this one, and you know, Unreal Engine 4 is proving itself to be a really adaptable engine. If you liked this video or found it insightful in any way, feel free to like or subscribe below. But until next time, thanks for watching.
You win.